Hey there, I'm your host Zoe, and this is part 2 of the inventory system series, and in today's video we'll be creating the interaction system. So let's begin. Let's go ahead and open up our content drawer, and in our inventory system folder we'll right click, go to blueprint and blueprint interface. Let's call this BPI, which stands for blueprint interface, interact. Now open this up, and in here we want a few functions. The first one being a focus target function, and this will have an output called message, and this will be of type text. Our second function will be called interact, and we'll have an input which will be the interactor, and this will be a reference to our third player character. So get your player character object reference, and we'll have a third function called onInteract, and this doesn't need any inputs or outputs. Let's compile, save, and exit. Next, let's go back into our content drawer and create a new folder called UI, and we'll design some UI that will pop up on the screen when we go ahead and interact with our item. Right click, go to user interface, blueprint widget, and let's call this our WB_interact message or interact prompt, whatever you like. Open this up, and let's begin by giving this a canvas panel like that. And we also want to give this a border. So let's do that. And we'll anchor this at the bottom of our screen, giving it a size of 400 by 70. The alignment will be at 0.5 and 1 with a -120 on the Y. We can change its color. Let me go ahead and give it like a brownish color, like so. We can save it as well. Maybe a little bit more, something like that. And let's go ahead and give it a text. This will be in the center. And what we can do is give it a font size of, let's say, 14. And just to test this, we'll say pick up health potion, and that all fits. Now we can make it look a little bit more pretty if you'd like. Let's go ahead and right click, create a new folder called MUI, which will be for our materials UI. Inside we'll create a material, and this will be called double gradient, inside of which we will get a linear gradient. There it is. And from our U gradient, we want to do a 1 minus, which will go into or let's just do M left click, and this will get us a multiply node. We want 2 of these. So plug this value into A, and 1 minus will go to B, and then this will go to the second multiply node. And you can open them up so you see what's happening. If we change this value, it becomes stronger. 20 is way too much. Something like 4 should work for us. And then let's do a clamp between the min and the max. And for our gradient here, we want the surface to be user interface and opaque to be translucent. Simply plug that into the final color and opacity. And there we go. We have a nice double-sided gradient. Let's apply that, save it. And then in our interaction message, if we click on our border, we can set the brush to our double gradient. So let's search for gradient, and there it is. And let's compile and save that. Next, let's go to our event graph. And inside here, we can get rid of construct and event tick. And we actually want access to our text variable. So let's click on that, make it variable, and let's call it txt underscore interact message. Back in our event graph, we'll get our text and do a set text, connect that to print construct. And from this, we'll do a promote variable, and let's call it interact message. And from this variable, we will do a is text empty to see if there's something there. From set text, we'll do a set visibility, and we'll do a select. And this will go as the condition. So how this system is going to work is we will create our widget on event begin play, but it's going to be invisible unless we are interacting with an item. So if text is empty, if it is true, will be collapsed. But if it's not empty, that means something's there. It's going to be visible and not hit testable. So we can't click on it. Next, we need to set up a custom event to be able to set our interact message. And let's call this something like set text, or better, set interact message. We'll grab this interact message to a set, plug that in there, and let's drag that into here. So this is us done. We can compile and save, and we can exit. Next, let's go ahead and create something called a blueprint component item data. So we will go to our inventory system folder. We will right click, go into blueprint class and get actor component. Let's call this BPC for blueprint component and item data. Inside of our item data, we want to give it the access to our blueprint interface functions. So let's add that there. And on interact, or rather interact, not on interact, we will do a get owner, and then we will do a destroy actor. So for now, when we go ahead and interact with our item, what will happen is it will simply destroy it, nothing else. We will add more code here later on. So we can compile that. And before we actually exit, let's add two variables. First is item ID, which will be a row handle, data table row handle. And we want a second variable called the item quantity. And this will be an integer. Make both of these instance editable and exposed on spawn, just like that. Instance editable and exposed on spawn. Compile this, save it. And next, let's go ahead and open up our items, our item base, inside of which we want to also go to the class settings and give it access to our blueprint interface functions, interfaces, and this time on focus target. What we will do is we want to display the type of item this is on our widget. So in order to do that, we first need access to our item data we just created. We'll get it and we'll do a get item ID, from which we will do a break. And we can now do a get row. And you can either connect the data table here or look at there. Doesn't really matter. We want to break this and we are focused on the name. Let me just connect this here as well. And on our message, we'll do a format text. And inside we will do pick up space, curly brackets, item, and curly brackets. And plug that in there. And since we don't need a description, we can hide all the unconnected pins. Just make it look a little bit more nice. And that's all we have to do in the focus target. compile that and save it. Now make sure you do this on the item base, not the child. So everything you do here is automatically added to all the children of the parent. Next, let's go ahead and create some inputs for our player character. So go to your third-person character folder, input, actions, right-click, go to inputs, input action, IA underscore interact. And we'll create a second one since we're here for our inventory, IA underscore inventory. Save both of these, go to your IMC default, hit the plus button on the mapping, hit your interact, and personally, I want this to be on the E key, but select whatever you like. And on our inventory, I'll have two keys. I want one on the I key and the second one on the tab key. So do whatever you like, as long as you're happy, save and exit. Next, let's go ahead and create a second component, this time for our inventory. So right click, go to blueprint class, actor component, BPC underscore inventory. Let's open this up. And the first thing we want to add, we can remove event tick. Let's do a custom event called create interact widget or interact message. Sounds better. And here we will do a create widget, which will be our interaction, our interact message. Let's promote this to a variable WB underscore interact message. And lastly, let's add it to our viewport. So that's that. Since we're here, we can also create another variable called the inventory size, which will be of type integer. And let's create our item slots, plural, because this will be an array and the type will be item slot, which is a structure we created earlier. Make these exposed on spawn and instance editable. Same here. And we can leave the interact message widget as is. Let's get our item slots and we'll do a resize, basically setting it up to whatever size we want, whatever you input here. And since we're here, let's also create a function called print inventory. So we see what we have. Let's get our item slots, do a for each loop. And from here, we'll do a break. And I want to do a print string or print, sorry, not print inventory, print string. And we'll append this because we want a lot more options here. So I want to return the array index. I also would like to return the item ID, and I want to return the quantity. So space equals, oh, like that. Plug that in there. And there we go. Let's compile that. And both of these functions can be called in our player character. So let's go ahead and do that. Open up your third-person character, blueprints, third-person character. And inside of here, we'll add our blueprint component, inventory. And immediately when you click on it, you can see that you can set the size. So let's give it 10 as a start. And if we drag this out, we can do a create interact message. Here we go. And you want to plug this in on event begin play, wherever it is in your player character. And if we do a keyboard one event, what I want to happen is I want to get this and do a print inventory. So we can test this quickly by compiling and saving. If we hit play and press 1, we get a print string on our top left corner. And an array starts with 0, so that's why the first index is going to be a 0, and it's going to end with 9 since we had 10 available. Next, what we want to do is we want to be able to interact with our mushroom. So can we display the text when we get close? No, we don't. First, we go to our Blueprint component inventory, and let's create a function called interaction. Here we'll do a sphere trace by channel. And for the start and end values, we'll get the owner. So this will refer to ourselves, our player character. And we'll do a get actor location. And this you will put into the start and the end. And if you really want to, we can promote our radius as well to something. Interact radius. If we compile, we can give it a default value of 100. The trace channel will go through our interactive channel that we created earlier. And to actors ignore, we'll do a make array. And we'll just get the owner. So it ignores ourselves. The draw debug type, we can do none or for one frame just to see this working. And then we can set it back to none. Get a branch by pressing B and left mouse button, connecting it like that. And out hit, we'll do a break. And we are interested in the hit actor. Promote it to a variable, calling it something like target actor or something of your choosing. So if we've hit nothing, I actually want to set this to be false. I want it to be nothing. And then I want to check, is it still equal to that value? So we'll do a not equals. If it not equals to that branch, we're going to set it again with this value. And at the very end, I'll do a interact, or what did we call this? Focus target message. And since we have the reference to our widget, we can do set interact message and connect it like so. And let's also copy these two and put it here. So when it is equal to nothing, that message is set to be empty. Therefore, our widget will no longer be on the screen. So let's compile that. And this interaction event or function will be called as well in our player on the event begin play. So let's do oh, my bad actually. We want to do a set timer by event. Let's create a custom event calling it begin interact or begin interaction like so. And on the event, we'll do a custom event calling it update interaction. And then we'll simply call our interaction function there. This will be set to looping, and the time I'll do 0.2, meaning every second it'll play 5 times. And that's it. We just want to call this event on the begin play. So begin interaction. We want to call the call function. Next, just before we test this, let's go into our Blueprint component item data and fill these values. So in our item ID, by default, I want this to be that table, and row name will leave empty, and item quantity will be 1, because by default, each item will have 1 value. Let's compile that. And next, let's go into our items. So item base, and if you select the item data, you can see row name. We gave our cube that 0001A1 value. So we'll set it at that. And our mushroom, we gave it a value of 0001B. So let's compile, save, and see how this looks like. The play button, we can see our interaction sphere in play. And if we go up to our item, we get the pickup mushroom message. And if we walk away, we get nothing. which is perfect. Let's also try this with our cube here. Let's play. If we get close, we get pick up test item. And if we walk away, we get nothing. And if we go to the mushroom, we get the pick up mushroom value. So that's working all nice for us. Next, we want to be able to interact with this item. So let's go back into our inventory component and add our IA_interact input here. And on started, we are going to get our target actor and we are going to check, is this valid? If it is valid, I'm going to drag out and do a get component by class. And I want to see, does this implement our blueprint component item data? Now, if it does, I will interact with it. So let's search for interact, and we want to get that interact message, not on interact, but interact. And make sure you also implemented this function in the blueprint component and not the on interact. We'll be using this later. So I'll go back here, and just before we do this, I want to see if is this valid. If it is not valid, well then the false will be going into our containers. Uninteracted, or the interactor, will be get player character and do a cast to third person character. And we can make this a pure cast. Connect that like so. And let's see this in action. Compile and save. And if we hit play, we should be able to get that message and press E to make the item disappear. And do the same with our mushroom. And if I print string, we don't actually take anything because they just simply get destroyed. We'll be doing that pickup function in the next episode. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. And as always, happy developing.